Okay. Oklahoma, Igana, Amen Legida, Wonders, Nita Jacho, Sinete, Totkan, Ayaji, Iruishi, Nigi, Poma Biti, Igana, Domopto, Jikti Haji. Well, the sun is shining, moon is rising, Juligi Abaskagi. Mvskoke land, that's where I belong, on a Saturday night in the light of fire. Against the mother trees, moving with the leaves, shadows of us dancing, singing truth to power, love in the final hour. We listen and we sing. Faith in the natural world, so simple and pure. Let me stay here around this fire with you. Well, the sun is rising, moon is shining, Juligi Abaskagi. Dana de Gosto, Zidan Yamana Lagat, Jimmy Yetichiga, Moes Totkan Chihosachi, Pohyagida Hagibi, Hajiti, go up Kibi, Haji, Ayagido. Well, the sun is rising, moon is shining, Juligi Abaskagi. Magida Kajuku Sinchi Gator, Mommy Magida, Yomazi Makero, one of the biggest Kabachari, Taman, other Chogar, she like is, Daman with Anta, Shosa, Hashaglatka, Kolawa Taman, other Chogar, Pohagis on that, Katsa Becky, Niddle, not a rast towards a go. Naged is to it under nomadi, Handa Jagget, Chagadok, Tida, the body, Naged know it, no nomadi, Juligi Abaskagi. Where the sun is rising, moon is shining, Juligi Abaskagi. Things about my life and the work I've done is just came natural because, we basically grew up in a society where we always have to begin to, as a child, establish that we're different already. And because I did not speak English, and my mother or father didn't either, and so we were in a society that Togobachi. Over there in that area, that's where I grew up, over there in Hughes County, north of Holdenville. And it was a place to where I had no fear. Growing, playing in the woods and, of all the things that are there today, but we never feared anything. And I don't remember anybody getting snake bit or, spiders getting them. I mean, we'd step on catfish every now and then in the creek while we're out there and, getting them by our hands, but nothing real serious. Until I went to school. And that's where I was taught fear, shame, guilt, like every day. And so I went through that period, in fear and praying every night, don't take me, don't take mine. That's I think it was pretty harsh treatment, the brainwashing, basically, what I went through. But when I left there, I went back to the country, and I was afraid, but then eventually that fear went away again because, I was back home and around my usual surroundings. But over the years, we began to have an attitude of, I guess, wanting freedom and being able to express ourselves and freely. And for me, as a child going to boarding school, this first thing in line was, get your hair cut, and so they shaved us. They asked me what kind of haircut you want, So I was telling them in the language, just kind of showing them here, leave that there, that kind of thing. But so, it's entertaining for people because I'm just a little child who don't speak English, and so they would call people in, others in there, and they'd laugh at what I said. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm in a strange world. But so the haircut starts and everything starts getting cut off and the tears start to fall. And so went through that whole period, and of course get outside and everybody's kind of laughing, and so it kind of goes away right away. But but the trauma was ingrained. That's why I remember it, and hoping that my children would never go through that. They haven't, but others that had experienced that, I think it made some of us resistant to the system, and that's kind of the way I grew up. And the way I resisted was whenever a teacher would tell me something in my mind, they weren't going to get in my mind, they couldn't, and I would interpret it in my language first. And I was a little slower at my response, but I had two languages that I'm working with all my life. And some things did not make sense as to the way they would sound in English. I mean, in Mvskoke from English. And so I eventually, over time, I think by the time I was in the 12th grade, actually I graduated as 11th grader, but last year is when I realized that because I was critically analyzing issues in my research, I'm beginning to lose that Stijati analytical process. And then it bothered me so much. I'm like, oh gosh, I jumped up and it's like, they got to me. They got to me now. And so I went on like a 3-day journey of not eating and drink water, and sort of come to the conclusion eventually that I just have to be who I am. And so that was my journey to begin to express myself as me and nobody else. And so.
Isa witskatan legati hoshats agalashwan hayaya gogiashi lubejeta Migo zabetin waje magat ojat shijerato achat ogidan yamaki gogiashi lubejeta Hoagie, haladet, mado magit, hotko be good luck, she got mo kana when I jump, get a no see a skill, in a bed to west to me got tent up conscience wagit hayo me doket hidden zabak got the aski lopetja Ishti walk it's go anu gets ka emoji ishti sto as and walk got hidden zabak Yaski Lopetja A hoagie, a ladet, mado magit, hotko be good luck, she good mo kana when I jump, get a no Yaski Lopetja Abuitska, Wojitska, Chijokado, Hotko be good. Money Chigot Gan, when I don't get a no Chiaski, Lupejay. Hey, yet hago naksamba hombebas. Kaza pitska, a sleazy tachitska no witcher. Miski, hazi haksi aski lupetja. Hijagida, hanogiji, tosko megod. Histimanejid, what's us? Hey, moment again, Yaski Lopetja.
And then, by the time I graduated, Wounded Knee happened, and 73. And of course, and then not long after I got into college, the Seminole Treaty people had any issues over there, so I went with my friends, and so we got involved and got sort of pulled into a lot of these court cases, but I still maintain my attitude towards sovereignty. I was part of the group, I believe, was remnants of the Ichki Oshta, means Four Mothers Society, and all south of over there at Hannah, we used to meet at the Liberty School, and I'd listen to the elders talk about it. I was only 16 then, but I liked what I heard. But after I graduated from school, the meetings were starting to not happen as much because they were dying, and so that was about the last time I went to one of their meetings, but they always talked about, our sovereignty. We are the people. We are the Idalwa, all the Idalwa Algiek, the tribal towns. Still, we know that we all each belong to, and they may not have a fire, but they're still the Idalwa that in our hearts, they will always be. And so, the people that were meeting there had mostly, we could say that they were Idalwa Jogoslako people from the big house, and the ceremonial people, we call them, and big house, Jogoslako, the lodge. Now, other parts of the country, they'd say that your lodge. We got lodges here, ceremonial lodges. So, Jogoslako, it was one of the biggest, it was probably the only ones that were represented the people from Chihuahua. And then, so it sort of fit in with the American Indian movement's activities and expression of, solidarity and red power. And so after that period kind of winded down, the treaty people issue started coming up. And so I've sort of always just kind of been in the background helping out with doing graphics or whatever it took and staying out of the picture. Hopefully I would, but I was always in it somehow. And I decided to, just kind of stick with my music, because when I was like 10 years old, my brother had a guitar and he played it, and when he was gone, that was my time. So when I was 10, that's when I started playing that thing and started playing songs, eventually. Perhaps it's just something that just comes natural to some people. And because my son, he's one that I tried to teach him to read notes and where to find it on piano, guitar, whatever, and he was always frustrated. But when I was in New Mexico, I heard somebody playing the piano really nice. I looked in there, it was him, and so he knew he could do it just naturally, and any instrument, he'd just pick up and just play it. I'm like, gosh, wish I could do that. But he can't read a lick of note. He just don't. He can't do that. So it must have been natural, but so for me, all these years, there was a time when my great uncle, I come back from school and I had my guitar, and he said, what is that? No, he knew what it was. Well, I was just telling him. He asked me to play it for him, so I played something, and he went, nah, he didn't like it. And that kind of just sunk my heart. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't have support. So I put it away for about 3 years. Then one day I was walking down the road and went under a bridge, and there was an old guitar there. I picked it up. It was all busted in, but it still could hold strings. So I strung it up, and that's when I went back into it again. So all these years must be, I guess, a good at least 57 years empty.
Hashiti ajok hayayaki Ogida madoke Nigo zabed mitkan chayate Stovidan shogi no dedo Hage kirate de dos moesan guslebe gado Nakita gigaza sapa de moes netta Wochin da bogi bades Jahirage adigat Ishtin me gozabesh Yan magagigas Ni boga boya dushigo Hobitagi apatske Polades Nita Alagate Nita Alagate Sometimes I lay under the moon I thank God I'm breathing Then I pray don't take me soon Cause I am here for a reason Sometimes in my tears I drown But I never let it get me down Cause when negativity surrounds I know someday it'll all turn around Because all my life I've been waiting for I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more There'll be no more wars and our children will play one day ooh. It's not about win or lose Cause we all lose when the beat on the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving, the waters stay raging. In this maze you may lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it phase you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. One day this all will change, treat people the same, stop all the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom. Why-yo, why-yo, why-yo.
I signed up for the draft as an objector. You know, it was my duty to say that I didn't like the war, because hey, but if I go there, hey, I'm going to shoot back. Yeah, I would, but just for myself, and probably my friends or whoever, comrades. Anyway, that's being like, that's part of my first act of political, I guess, some activity related to foreign wars. But Wounded Knee had happened, and so listening to about all the rights that we have, and treaty rights violated, and so it makes a young man resentful of the authority. So we always questioned as best we could. But a lot of times it was through action that, you know, we just didn't want to participate in the mainstream way of life. And so ceremonial life was our sovereign way of living. And the things about, you know, the movement, then I went because I really I was into the movement, so I went to Minneapolis and lived there for a while, closer to the founders of the movement. Participated there in a lot of encampments and began to help them out. But there were times, because I could talk the language, they always called on me to pray, and it wasn't I didn't know how to pray, except just to ask the ancestors, and, you know, just talk about, you know, the power of nature, life, and all this, and mainly because I can touch that life. And talking about the spirit, it's like, well, I didn't know, but eventually, you know, I began to feel in my heart that the spirit is there, and ultimately it began to coalesce into strengthening my I say mind, body, and spirit. As I'm growing into a social consciousness as Ishtijadi. And I think comes a time where, you know, we realize that we've reached a level when we stepped out of that box of that group thinking that we have to talk like everybody else, but anymore, then we come to realize that, you know, I'm going to be me, and beginning to listen to everybody and respect everybody, and that's where I believe that level of spiritual consciousness is beginning to settle in, and so listening to everything that's all around you, and like when I'm at a place sometimes that you feel a cool pocket of cold air. It's like, wow, this is different. and say thank you, because it feels good. And other indigenous people I've come across with in ceremonies that say, that's when their understanding is the spirit is there when they're in prayer. And then you feel a breeze kind of coming around you like that, and then it's like they just came and acknowledged and took your words. And your words, it's like, they always said ceremonial grounds. We don't need a huge audience. All we need is love, faith, humility, and obedience. When you make an announcement, the wind will take it, and you have excited the molecules that are connected universally, and then the wind takes it.
Here's one I've always wanted to share with the tribe, the people, Mvskoke Creek Nations. He's one of our own. Wrote this back in the early 1800s. James Gregory Roan wrote a poem, and I found it, and I really liked it. And it's called The Green Corn Dance. Let me see if I can remember it. My children are happy until this day. Idaloyetski Nigido. The ashes of the fire are blown away. The paths along led from the blue sea. Southern winds came blowing the new corn. Warm sun counsel with the great dark cloud. Dimple Haiti sends a lightning reborn. With a lightning fire we dancing and loud. Children of the corn, rejoice this day. Idaloyetski Nigido. The ashes of the fire are blown away. The rain come up from the blue sea. Dimple comes with the children in his light and fire. We dance singing loud. E-I-O, wa-hee-eh, ah-eh. E-I-O, wa-hee-eh, ah-eh.
That, it's just a really finite thing. It's just so close. The power is there. And this is the way I begin to feel, and I respect life in general, because everything is so right there. This food is all around us in the forest here, and we just need to know where to go. And we're losing that because of our, I guess, Eurocentric mindset now. But that level of consciousness, I believe, is when we begin to settle in. And I think through that, I began to see that music, if I take my thoughts in the music and just use that level to, or that medium to send my message in. That song I sang once about that interpreted song, One Love, you know, it's about war and, you know, not living together and forever fighting. You know, but one day, nita, stofast, you know, someday we will all be just one, and our children will be able to play like that. It's those kinds of messages that I like to create in my lines, and things, of course, related to from our perception of reality and how we look at these things, and try to, if it makes me feel good, I'm just hoping that it makes somebody else feel that same energy. So and that's basically kind of like in a nutshell for my songs, and I participate in a lot of these activities, climate change marches, and you know, of course anti-pipelines and mascots, everything that you see. I've been out there, and I always want to just sit and let others take the lead on these things, but sometimes because I've got the mic, it's like nobody wants to come up, and I end up like, okay, well, somebody come up. But in the meantime, I want to say something. So then it goes into that, but it's just something that I'm always hoping that young leadership would step up and express themselves. And when I first started playing music, I was in the cities, and I would get butterflies. I'd be so sick after, but I needed to break that. I needed to get used to just being out there in public, because you know I had something to say, and it was just burning. So anymore, I'd go on the street corners and you know just start playing. And I had big plans just before the COVID to do something in Tulsa, but I never got around to it. And so that's why I carry my stuff around. Now it's just always for protest. People call me, and sometimes I can make it, but most of the time it's just, you know, it takes a lot of sacrifice and my time and energy, and I kind of like expressing myself against the authorities, and then helping families that have gone through some hard times, and they just want somebody to care, and so I'm always willing to make some time.
I'll let get you got man. Jese jana gadi Alwi isti kanjabi tamge Jindat pa bashte Madan taka zayangi Jin hilagen hardware ibet ke kanjabi Neta without odor Dam gita this Ishte halwi kanjabi damge Jawegi bas jiaja Midget Kenta Hoshigo Ishte Hawi Kanjabi Tamge Damgas papni mai hijis kodayen Wheeler skin jijas wakit chikon Jawe gibas jiajam Mije jao shigo Ishte hawi kanjabi tamge Jawe gibas jiajam Mije jao shigo Ishte hawi kanjabi tamge You know, I mean, we'd hear something on the radio, and then because my siblings, we all talk to each other, never using English. And we'd hear that song, and then we'd talk about what it's saying, and say, and try to mimic what they said in that song. And so it was just kind of slow grooming, you know, that process. But anymore, it got to be, to me, it became a challenge to match the English lyrics with Mvskoke with the same rhythmic pattern, the amount of syllables, and so I could create something, but then I had to break it down, and then so to refine it, and then or change the whole way of saying it to match it. One song that in Christmas time, I know that I was trying to interpret as much as I can that were not, and one of it is Feliz La Vida.
Oh, yeah.
So I did that one. Avachki adeba, avachki adeba. So that's one of the things that that one I liked. And I've recorded with the Seminole tribe of Florida just one song for their school. I created a song for their school, and so they play it they were playing it every 2 hours or so, and it's like a 90-second song. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the main things I really like is just doing these little short ones. And I always clung close to being the people from the heart of the trees. That's Mvskoke. That's what they say. And then, but I've heard others say that we are, there's a word that says we are people from the heart of the tree. That's who Mvskoke people are. And so that the years of migrations of our people and who we really are, I really never felt comfortable saying I'm Mvskoke. I mean, because maybe people from the South, global South, and in the North, because my father's part comes from the Shawnee group, the Togobachi, and so that's why I always say, I'm an inter-tribal kind of guy, but only right now I'm a full-blood Creek. Yanita Hayomi, Igan Hayit Hagidayiba. At this time of climate change, in the COVID that is going on, and as we are doing our best to survive this, and it's the children of the future will get beyond this particular period, but
the earth is not going to stop. It's going to keep evolving. And so it's those jindagi, you children, that I'm thinking about, these things. That when I do today, I want to do my best to think of the children as far as 150 years from now. Ishti hijakshigo, future generations. That's one of the things that I hope that the nation today can do something for them tomorrow. And that's the seventh generation, 150 years from today. Shigeja Geshta, that's what I say to you all.
One day this all will change, treat people the same, stop all the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom.